Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should always be connected to the land and the people of Israel. Happy to be back with you on Thanksgiving, guys. Happy Thanksgiving from the land of Israel. Happy Thanksgiving to you guys, although I don't think you guys do that, right?
Every day is a day of Thanksgiving.
Does anybody in Israel celebrate Thanksgiving?
It's one of the few holidays that really gets carried over from American-born Jews who have made Aliyah. They continue keeping it in Israel, Thanksgiving about America, because on the long journey of the exile and the diaspora, we've had tremendous persecution. I would say America really has been the best stop on the journey of various nations, various countries. I hope it remains that way. But I feel like a lot of American Jews have tremendous hakarat hatov, a recognition of goodness and gratitude for what America has been.
Are you saying that there are Jews in Israel that are celebrating Thanksgiving?
Are you kidding me?
Thanking the existence of America?
Yes.
Or they're just kind of celebrating a Thanksgiving, giving thanks to God?
They are who are you?
I'm just saying, I've been to Thanksgiving events. I have.
Everywhere I go, there are Thanksgiving meals with the turkey and the cranberry
and
jam
the celebration
for America.
Okay.
You're right. Every day is a Thanksgiving in Israel. It's a miracle every day we survive, and we're grateful every day. That's what it is to be a Jew.
I'm saying my friends are grateful that they've made Aliyah. They're like having a Thanksgiving dinner in honor that they made Aliyah, that they live in the land. It's the same day as they would have celebrated America. They're not thanking their existence that was in America. That's just not the way it has. At least the events that I've gone to.
Well, then you're not around the same groups that I am. Okay, but but really, to be a Jew, the word Jew comes from Yehudi, which is lehodot, which means to thank. And a fundamental tenet of principle, a foundation of what it is to be a Jew, is to live a life of gratitude, right? And so looking at America and seeing the blessing and the light America has been, one would have to be blind not to. And I think it's a beautiful thing. I think
you're
we should continue.
Right. I think it's a testimony. That's really the truth. I mean, especially when I go to Walmart. When I go to Walmart and I just look down the aisles and there's like thousands of different types of juice. I don't know any other country in the world that has such a thing. And how has America been blessed with so much abundance and blessing? It's because they were the best host country for the Jewish people in all of our exile.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I try to watch these guys like Tucker and Fuentes and Candace and all of them faces out there and not be so defensive. And there's this thing, dual loyalty. Tucker is saying that, U.S. born citizens shouldn't be able to serve in foreign countries. They have dual loyalty. And I'm like, you know what? I actually do have dual loyalty. I do. I really love America.
Wait,
I'm
to
grateful.
America or to Texas, though?
I feel loyal to
Because I feel like your loyalty might be just to Texas.
To the nation of Texas. I feel loyalty to America even now. I really do. I feel such gratitude to America. I do feel loyal to America, but my greatest ultimate loyalty is to the state of Israel. That's why I moved here. That's why I came back home. It wasn't out of a rejection for America, and it wasn't out of a lack of gratitude, overwhelming gratitude and overwhelming love. And if I had two lives to give, I'd give my first for Israel, my second for America. But the irony is that we're being accused of dual loyalty. Meanwhile, there's actually fundamentalist jihadists that are killing National Guard outside the White House, and nobody's saying anything about their loyalty. They don't even have dual loyalty. They have single loyalty.
It's true.
To the jihad and to the global Muslim caliphate, and they're very vocal about that, and their adversaries, but not a word is said. It's just It's a little bit of a crazy thing.
Well, I think that I actually agree with you on this deal. I'm not even an Israeli citizen, but like loyalty wise, and I think it's actually deeper than that. I think it goes back to my faith. And I think that's where America, and kind of back to what you were saying, is our hospitality for the Jewish community, is it really came back to faith. Is that America was founded on faith. And that we had our Christian forefathers, these people were founded on the Bible. And that's where all of this comes back to, is that, and I think this is where we're getting away from, and that my loyalty to America is because of our freedom and because of our faith-based constitution. Now, if that erodes and that falls away, well, I'm willing to fight for that, and I'm willing to stand up for that. But if America becomes a Muslim nation, becomes a socialist, whatever, that doesn't have those same values, then sorry.
Ultimately, there can only be one loyalty. I remember Candace Owens when Kanye West was coming on being like, I love Hitler. And like he was doing all of his crazy things. She's like, he's my friend. I'm loyal. And Matt Walsh was talking about loyalty and friendship. Jeremy's been my best friend for 25 years. Am I ultimately loyal to Jeremy? No. No, I'm not. Meaning that if he betrayed the values that I am committed to, the godly values, the Torah values, then that would be over. The only true loyalty you can really have is to God. Right? Because otherwise it just becomes an attachment that can become like an idol in and of itself. So of course I look at America and my heart is breaking because of this wonderful legacy of biblical values and courage and character and conviction and openness and light. And now it's breaking. My heart is breaking for it. But I really hope that they can redeem some of that.
Well, before we dive in too much,
I'm sorry. I feel like I just hijacked your show.
It's
Luke.
good. I think that's what the people enjoy, actually. And you guys can let us know, because we've been having this debate the last few weeks, and we were texting yesterday about how should we have a more organized format with like specific news stories to cover, or is it like turn the cameras on and we just dive in and start arguing about Thanksgiving? And you guys can let us know. Do you like both, or do you like one or the other? But just a couple housekeeping things. Didn't introduce you, Nate, although I think people know who you are at this point.
That's right.
Nate Waller. We could call you an Israel Guys contributor at this point, I think. But I think you'll be on a lot more so that people can get to know you. Joshua Waller not here, a little bit under the weather today. Also, we put out a documentary about the Iran attack this past summer, the 12-day war called Operation Rising Lion, I believe. The team worked really, really hard on this documentary. They put in dozens of hours of production and editing. We're going to link that down below because you definitely need to take a look. This is more than just our normal videos we put out on a weekly basis. This is a pretty serious documentary telling the story of what happened this past summer.
And if I could just comment on that as part of the Rising Lion idea to encourage people to watch it more. Is this mic working? I'm really glad you're making this documentary, the Rising Lion one, because if you look at just the names of Israel's wars, it's almost like the random word generator of the most boring names ever. Like this war of redemption that was launched October 7th that I believe will be the final defibrillator that wakes up the nation of Israel to our mission in the world and leads to the building of the temple. And we'll look at that. They called it Swords of Iron. But this last war with Iran actually was named accurately. Am Kilavi. Bilam had this vision in the end of days that Israel would finally rise like a lion, and that's what's actually happening now. And it's so cool you're making a documentary of it, because it's not just a war, it's a fulfillment of prophecy and the unfolding of redemption that we're seeing. And so for you to chronicle that, it's really awesome.
We'll link that down below if you guys want to take a look. We would love that. Definitely make sure you're subscribed. We are almost at 400,000 subscribers, and there's now a fear that we won't reach that by the end of the year. So we need everybody to go subscribe today to the Israel Guys channel. And obviously, if you listen or watch anywhere else, follow there as well. So we had a few stories we wanted to get into today. One was there was a massive attack on Jewish shepherds in Judea, like right around the corner from where you guys live. So I want to hear your take on that. It's also something that's not reported in the media, which is always something we're very passionate about here about the Israel Guys, is telling the stories that don't get told, right? Or that get covered up, or if they are told in the mainstream media, they're twisted, or there's some, that's turned into a propaganda piece. Also, Israel is moving a piece of legislation through the Knesset that would actually overturn a 70-year discriminatory law that does not allow Jews to buy land in Judea and Samaria. So we'll get into that and some more. We'll get back to the podcast in just a second, but as we're nearing the end of the year, I want to let you guys know that we have a really special opportunity. I know you've heard about it several times already, but we have a members program, and it's a really cool way to connect with the Israel Guys like next level. You get to connect with our hosts, our team, behind the scenes team, our volunteer work here in Israel. We do amazing things all across Judea and Samaria, on the farms, on the frontiers, in the Jewish communities. We introduce you to some amazing people. When you're part of the Israel Guys member program, you're not only supporting our work, which by the way is all free. We're a nonprofit in the United States. Everything's tax, donations are tax deductible there. But you're actually being a part of the story of the redemption that's happening here in the land of Israel, and you get access to some really cool stuff. We have an amazing Telegram channel where our whole staff team posts cool pictures, behind the scenes videos of our film shoots and our volunteer stuff that we're doing with farmers and cool locations. Post a photo of the month. We have a monthly newsletter that includes all of this stuff, prayer requests and things that we've accomplished in the last month, a photo of the month, discounts to our store. It goes on and on. It's really cool. And the cool thing is there's no minimum required to sign up. All you have to do is make a commitment to be part of our team on a monthly basis with a financial contribution of any amount. And you're part of the program. And then you get to join the Telegram group, but you don't have to. You can get everything through the monthly email newsletter that comes out as well. And you get access to behind the scenes of the Israel guys, everything we do here in the land of Israel. So guys, check out the link. We'll put it in the description below. Consider joining our team for 2026. Be a part of the Israel Guys member program. There's no better way to support our work, and there's no better way to be connected to the heartland of Israel. Join the member program today. Back to the podcast. There was a shooting attack in Washington, D.C. last night or yesterday that we felt like was very important to cover. Obviously, you've all seen the headlines, seen the news. 2 National Guardsmen shot just like blocks away from the White House, if I understood the story correctly, by the suspect that's been neutralized and apprehended was from Afghanistan, I believe. He's been, if I read correctly, because I didn't put all the notes in on this story, he's been in the United States since 2021. And as of this moment, the 2 National Guard soldiers who were shot, their conditions unknown. It seems like they are still hanging on, but critical condition in the hospital. So I thought that was interesting that we were going to talk about an attack by
the way,
jihadis.
just to clarify, all of the reports I saw said they were dead.
When I looked it up right before the show, it seems like maybe they're still alive. Okay. So, but either way,
they have a complete recovery.
By the time you guys are watching and listening to this, you might be able to confirm the situation from the news, because obviously there's a good 6-7 hour gap.
Well, I wanted to take a bird's eye view and just look at that event that happened in Washington, D.C., because there's so much time and airtime that's wasted on calling out Israel as the enemy. And sometimes what the real enemy does isn't just a lie, it's the anti-truth. It's like the opposite of the truth. And what's happening is, Ari mentioned, the Jews have dual loyalty, where there is a movement in the world that has only one loyalty, the Hamas, the jihad. They want to create an Islamic caliphate. They want Islam to dominate the entire world. That's what they're loyal to. That's the real enemy. And Israel is on the front lines of a war against the global jihad. And just the other day, last week, there was a protest outside a synagogue in New York, in Manhattan. And they were saying, globalize the Intifada, globalize the Intifada. Globalize the Intifada is literally calling for Islamic war against the infidel, against the non-Jews. And the very next week after that, now National Guard soldiers are being killed outside Washington, D.C. If you don't see the measure for measure that's happening right now, that as America is sort of slowly but surely turning against Israel, then the enemy's going to come through the back door and end up right near the White House attacking its own soldiers. It's so obvious that you can't be, you have to be blind not to see it.
Well, I think on that deal is, for Americans, I would say most Americans don't really understand the word intifada. We don't understand what that means. And so we really need to listen to Israel. Israel understands what the word intifada means.
Yeah, it's like a violent uprising.
You've been through what they call 2 intifadas that were bus bombings, shootings, suicide attacks. I mean, thousands of Israelis have been murdered through intifadas. Like, this is not just a random act of violence or a protest in the streets that's busting windows. These are literally lives lost. Like, we have no context for what intifada means. What does global intifada mean? What is this? Like, tell me. What does it mean?
Israel knows what it means. We know what it means because we've paid for it in blood, in the blood of our children. But then when we hear Americans being gaslit, and they're like, no, the jihad is about the internal struggle against the evil inclination. And you're right, that's the jihad. Come on. Right. Intifada is an uprising of the dignity of, no, it is about murdering the infidels. Right. That's what it is, period.
Well, there's 2 parts to the jihad. And it's really important that people know that it's either going to be done through bullets or it's going to be done through the ballot. That's the option. But the ultimate goal is that the jihad, Islamic jihad, takes over and submits everyone that's not a part of their cult. And so either you can do that like they did in Dearborn, Michigan, and what they just did in New York City, where they elected now a jihadist mayor who is now appointing all of his staff, some of the most anti-Israel, anti-Semitic people that exist. And so it's happening. Either it will happen through the ballot, through votes, or it will happen through killing National Guards. But either way, it's a direct war against freedom. And so when people are kind of distracting you saying, oh, there's dual loyalty over there, what they don't realize is that the anti-loyalty that is happening inside America as churches are being converted into mosques, and that America is literally a sitting duck right now, and they don't even know that they're being targeted.
Yeah. Well, what I want to say too is I think it's really interesting that you have a massive movement in the so-called conservative movement, right, to separate themselves from the Jewish people and from Israel. Or you could say from Judeo, values, right? You have people saying America first, dual loyalty. I'm not part of Israel. I don't believe that the state of Israel is. I don't believe the Jewish people are the Jewish people anymore. You have this like people desperately trying to differentiate themselves, and then what happens? The same enemies of Israel go until kill shoot two National Guardsmen in Washington D.C. And what people don't realize is like the enemy is the same, and the enemy doesn't really care. They don't really care whether you're sided with Israel, sided with Jewish people or not. Like if you are not Muslim, if you don't believe in Sharia law, and especially if you believe in the Bible and you believe in God, then we have the same common enemy, whether we like it or not. Right. And so there's no like differentiation at the end of the day. They're coming, that the Israel's enemies always say first the Saturday people, then the Sunday people, first Israel, then America. They're coming for us, whether we,
right. There
whether
were
we like it or
survivors
not.
of the October 7th massacre on the Gaza envelope. Because keep in mind that population, that demographic. Well, I remember going down there and seeing big posters of Shalom Achshav, Peace Now, the far left organization. They would do everything. They would go and pick up Gazans and bring them to hospitals, and they were so progressive. And what did they do? It didn't matter to them that it was the most leftist, pro-Gaza, pro-Hamas progressives. They massacred them in the most brutal, horrific ways imaginable. They don't make those distinctions. That's what Jews, we learn that again and again throughout Jewish history. You could be on the left and a socialist or a communist or ultra-Orthodox, and you end up in the same gas chamber of Auschwitz. We are together in this thing, and I just hope the West doesn't learn about that too late.
Well, I think it's important because the people that are the outside, they really don't know. It used to be, well, there's the right, and then there's the left. There's Republicans and there's Democrats. There's Christians and there's non-Christians. There's secular. And now it's becoming quite confusing because Israel is starting to lose the Republican Party. Israel's starting to lose what's called like the woke right. And all of a sudden there's now a new alignment between the woke left and the woke right. And what connects those? What is the only common thread that I see is that they're both anti-Israel. Right. But when you look a little bit closer, you can see there's no righteousness there. There's a disconnect from the Bible there. There's no godliness there. And so it seems as though two camps are being formed, and it's not right and left anymore. And it's not even Christian and secular anymore. It really is who is going to be loyal to God? Who is going to be loyal to righteousness? Who's going to be loyal to the Bible? And that's really the final stand.
Yeah, I think that's so important for people to realize. And, after seeing, and obviously, I don't think the news has come out and said, well, this attack was motivated by jihad, or whatever.
Well,
but
reports did come out saying that what he screamed was Allah Akbar.
But I guess what I'm saying is, it's
happened.
like, how much do we want to bet, right? Like, it's
right.
It's just a matter of time.
I saw I don't know if you saw the picture, the aerial picture of him, the shooter being put in a stretcher to the ambulance. And he's sort of a chunky dude. I think he could go on the Judean diet possibly. No, but he had the Muslim caliphate beard, the ISIS beard. I'm like,
right.
Okay, obviously. And I'm just like, immediately I was like, how is Tucker going to blame Israel for this? Because ultimately I'm not even kidding. Israel's going to be blamed for this one way or another.
Well, I'll tell you, it's something that's so new in the world because never before has there really been a religious-driven war against America. There's never been. The Nazis weren't religiously driven to war. Russia's not really as communist. It was political. There was something there. This is a new creation because it's kind of bringing us full circle now that the end of days, the final war is going to be a religious war. It's going to be good versus evil. It's going to be done in the name of God. And that's why when people are shot, they never say free Palestine if they're Muslim. They will always say Allah Akbar. It always comes from a religious root.
And I think that's really interesting. Like, I think you were saying it, Nate, that America should be watching Israel and aligning themselves with Israel, because Israel has been fighting the religious war for 70 plus years now. And like you said, this is not, I never thought of this. This has never come to America before. Now that it's on America's shores, America is like in process of trying to pull away from Israel when they should be coming closer, because they have a lot to learn.
Well, so everyone always has the question, how can it be that the left-wing liberals are the ones that are aligning specifically with the Hamas, where their values are totally opposite? But the truth is, when I look at their motivations, both of them are really driven by a hate. It's not like they're really fighting for something or in love of something. It's like they hate, and that hatred brings them together. But even more than that, I would say, if you break it down in the ancient Jewish tradition, there's no distinction between Republicans and Democrats. There really is two forces in the world, and one is Esav and one is Ishmael. Ishmael represents the Arab world, and Esav represents Rome, represents Western civilization. And so right now there's an ancient midrash that says that Esav, the brother of Jacob, goes to Ishmael, the son of Abraham, and they say to each other, you know what? I'm going to kill your brother, Jacob, and you kill my brother, Isaac, and together we're going to rule the world. And they both really like that idea. Shake hands, and as they walk away, they both say in their hearts, you know what? When he's done killing my brother and I'm done killing his brother, I'm going to kill him. And they're both saying that. And they both walk away. And that, in my mind, is one of the most prophetic midrashim that Jewish tradition has. Because here we're seeing the left and the woke right in America now aligning with the Muslim world. And the Muslim world is aligning with them. And both of them are thinking to themselves, oh, I can't wait. I'm going to get rid of them. As soon as they're done with Israel, I'm going to get rid of them. And it's literally unfolding before our very eyes.
Well, we saw this exactly played out with Hitler and with the Grand Mufti in Jerusalem. He made the Grand Mufti an honorary Aryan race. This doesn't even make sense. The Aryan race is this European white whatever of Hitler's deal. He makes this Arab jihadist like an honorary position in this. Like, he's also Semitic. He comes from Abraham. Like, so it's not that he's against he's not anti-Semitic. He's anti-Jew. He's hating Jews.
Let's flash that picture here. Could we do that? Because these pictures...
Hitler and the Mufti?
Hitler and the Mufti, because I remember that hearing that in Yad Vashem, there's a certain sort of leftist liberal bent in a lot of the Jewish world today. There's no secret about that. And a lot of them really were lobbying to take that picture down and out of Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum in Israel, because they felt like it wove a deeper narrative that would undermine Israeli-Palestinian peace efforts. Because when people understood that the whole framing Israeli-Palestinian peace efforts is ridiculous, it's insane. This is obviously a deeply rooted, there's always the people that say it's Judea and Samaria, the West Bank. That's the reason that there's conflict in the world, without knowing just like the basic, the Palestinian Liberation Organization. The PLO was founded in 1964 to liberate the settlements of 67 that didn't exist yet. It's silly. It goes all the way back 1,300 years.
Even more than that, if it was about the 67 borders, why was there a war in 1967? Why did they launch war at us? Obviously, it's not about the 67
borders. Well, and why
borders.
are all of their logos, and we've talked about this before, exactly the shape of Israel?
Of course.
Like all the maps,
all
their maps, all their keychains, all the stuff that say Palestine on them, exactly the shape of Israel.
To me, what the lesson that needs to be learned is, although last week I was told that, this is like reported in the news, over 100 military representatives from 20 countries came to Israel to debrief with the IDF. And just some of the countries there were US, Canada, Germany, Finland, France, India, Greece, Hungary, Morocco, Romania, Japan. Even though Japan had come out, condemning Israel for its war crimes, now they're coming to learn from the IDF what they did exactly, because obviously they weren't coming to learn about genocide. They were coming to learn all of the techniques in order to prevent civilian casualties. And they're learning it from the people that have really done it on the field. But at the same time, meaning we're losing a little bit on the right in America. We're losing a little bit on the left in America now. To me, the call to action right now for Israel is, aside from debriefing all these countries, Israel has to become independent. We have got to stand on our own 2 feet. We have to become fully grown up, not getting any foreign aid, not depending on military supplies from any other country. Israel has to, and quick, because we don't know what's going to happen these next elections. This last election, I was like, whoa, thank God, Donald Trump got elected as president. Next election, I don't know. Are we going to be happy if it's a Republican? Are we going to have if it's a Democrat? Who knows what's going to be? And so therefore, Israel can't rely on Washington anymore.
Hopefully we will have grown enough and evolved enough and liberated ourselves enough that we won't be so dependent. We won't celebrate one way or the other, because ultimately it's up to us whether any American president or any foreign president turns out to be a blessing or a curse. I wasn't celebrating when Donald Trump was elected. I was like, this could be, I was bracing myself for Israel to drop the ball, for Israel not to have because if we have the proper posture and the proper ally relationship, understanding our value and America's value, and we look straight in the eye, but if we're this codependent vassal state, then it will turn out to be a curse. It's really up to us.
I'll tell you how I understand that. I really see that as God's mercy to Israel. They offered us an opportunity. He said, unleash hell on the Hamas. Go, just devastate the Hamas. Take over Gaza. Deport the Gazans. Gaza El Largo. America has your back. We were given the green light to do whatever we needed to do, and Israel dropped the ball. But it could be that the next president of the United States will be a little bit less friendly to Israel. And then Israel will become the nation that we're meant to be.
It's always been that way. We always give away land and do nationally suicidal, self-destructive things when we have an ally in the White House, because we have a weak spot on our national consciousness where we get our arm twisted behind our back by our friends. Where when it's Obama, how much land did we give away? How much? That's why I was saying it would be better for Israel if Kamala was elected, because then we know that we're on our own here and we have to put our faith either in ourselves or preferably in the God, creator of heaven and earth, where it belongs. But so I'm always worried about the allies.
I want to go into a story of what happened in you guys' neighborhood. Because I think it's tied into jihad happening in America now, and America should be learning from Israel. Now, we don't talk about the majority of what happens in Judea and Samaria on a daily basis when it comes to attacks on the Jewish people who are living here, the so-called settlers and settlements and the hilltop youth and the radical settlers. I had somebody here yesterday who was asking me, but yeah, aren't a lot of the hilltoppers like real radical and extremists and violent and dangerous? And I was trying to explain to them, like that's actually the fringe minority. There's a few criminals here and there, but the majority of them are not those people. You guys, you've talked about before, a lot of these youth that are living out on the edge, settling the land of Israel, shepherding their flocks. The majority of them are just amazing, incredible people. But what's interesting is on the flip side, these guys are also being attacked on a near daily basis, if not a daily basis.
And they don't have weapons. These kids do not have weapons, and they're surrounded by these jihadist villages, and they're walking barefoot with their book of Psalms and their flutes. I'm telling you, I'm not just trying to paint a picture.
I've seen them, yeah.
And they're really of such self-sacrifice. They don't even have smartphones. Right? They don't. It's like a movement. It's the cool thing. You're like a loser if you have a smartphone. It's not because they can't afford it. It's because they don't want to be attached to it.
Right.
They don't want to be dependent on it. They want to wear a drool bib and just scroll like everybody in the West, often myself included. And so they have these phones where you have to text by pressing the number 3-4 times to get to the letter D, and they actually need it out there to record what's happening, to reach out, and they don't do it. They're tremendously brave. And yeah, there's some that are going overreacting on the other side because there's such a move to the left on one side that they have to overcompensate on the other side. And that's going to happen. By the way, that happens with youth all over the world in every capacity, in every way. But yet when it happens with them, it's like, oh, look at you. You're not perfect.
Well, I think what's really beautiful about them is that most 18, 19, 20-year-old people, let's say in the United States, they're pretty much focused on the material world, how they can get ahead, how they can make more money, how they can get more security. And these people, they're just fully dedicated to the land. They're fully dedicated to Israel. They've decided to not go the route of like, how do I maximize profits? They're saying, how do I maximize my connection to this land? How do I maximize the connection to God? How do I live a little bit closer to the way that we used to live back in the days of the Bible?
So you guys live where King David shepherded his sheep, right?
That's right.
And he wrote the Psalms and the caves. Like, it's exactly where you live. And yesterday there was a group of shepherds that were attacked while shepherding their sheep in the same hills where David walked his sheep on the hills and wrote the actual Psalms, and dozens of Arab rioters from the village of Rashida attacked these shepherds near Male Almos, which is like just next door to you guys, right? And stole their sheep violently. People were seriously injured. Dozens of rioters attacked this farm, and people came to try to help them. Their vehicle windows were smashed. It just went on and on. And we'll show some of the pictures in the video. Some of it a little bit hard to see. Like a full-on riot, and attacked these guys. Why? Because they were shepherding their sheep on the hills where King David was shepherding his sheep.
That's exactly what it is. It's not random, and it's not an accident. It's a symbol that there is no greater sign, no greater expression of the Jewish return to the land than Jews shepherding sheep on the hilltops of Judea. Abraham was a shepherd. Jacob was a shepherd. Isaac most probably was a shepherd. King David was anointed king as he was shepherding his sheep. Right. So it's one thing, maybe they can tolerate Jews being accountants in Tel Aviv or high tech sector. But for us to actually return to the hills of Judea as shepherds in our land, it is just furthering their realization that we've not only returned, but we're here to stay. And we're back on the most deep spiritual, religious, biblical sense. And there's nothing that they can do about it.
I think what's so frustrating about the whole scenario is that this will absolutely be reported as settler violence.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what happens all the time. The settlers are being attacked. They defend themselves, and then it's reported as, the settlers are being violent again. These were just people out shepherding their sheep quietly, not bothering anyone out in the mountains. And they were attacked by a swarm. I mean, it was a coordinated attack. Obviously, it wasn't something spontaneous. It had a whole team of rioters that came to attack these shepherds. And it will be presented in the reports in the UN as settler violence.
And by the way, what's disturbing to me on a very deep level is I know that village. I've driven through that village many times. Through the village.
This is the Arab village?
It's actually Bedouins. It's a Bedouin village called Rushaida. You can see the top crest of it just from my balcony. And people are like, what's that? I'm like, that is 0.001% of that massive village going over mountains and mountains and mountains. It's a sort of interesting village. Like there are thousands of structures, very few of them people actually sleep in. They build 2/3 of a structure, they put their sheep in, and then they sleep on the floor outside. It's just a very, very different culture. But I used to be able to drive through it because we knew that they're not terrorists, they're criminals. They have a lot of weapons there and they sell them to terrorists, but they're not terrorists. They're criminals. There's no real reason to be nervous. But now they're being radicalized and they're actually attacking. And I think a big part of that has to do with when they see the state of Israel going into nearby settlements and uprooting Jews from their homes, which happened not that long ago.
Yeah, just
right
last
across from
week,
us in the Arugot Valley, right across near Meitzad, where they destroyed. And listen, it was a complicated situation on behalf of the government, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the optics of going in and forcefully destroying Jewish homes where there are hundreds of thousands of illegal Arab homes, not a word, not a peep, not a bulldozer, but Jews destroying Jewish homes. And the next day there was a terrorist attack. And a lot of people felt like there was a connection between that terrorist attack, a man being murdered, and the Jews. And so when our enemies see us turning on each other, they smell the confusion, they smell the weakness, and they smell the blood in the air, and it's time to pounce. And that's what we're seeing now.
I kind of agree with you on that, Ari, but I also think that there's something else going on here. And I think that I've been processing this over the last couple of days is this idea of faith action that the world can't handle. And that's what Jews settling in Judea, in Israel, is. Abraham receives a promise, and he has faith in God, and he walks out that promise. Right, he comes to the land of Israel. There's an action involved in that faith, in that belief. And in the New Testament, it talks about, it says that Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. Is that because of his belief, his faith. But he acted on that. And I believe what we're seeing today is Jews are acting on their faith in settling the land. And that's what the world has a problem with, is there's actually this faith action that's happening. Faith is not just something in the head. It's something that we actually live out and do every day. And I think this is happening. And this is what is actually coming to America as well. Charlie Kirk's assassination was because he was putting his faith in action. He was actually doing something. And that's what we're seeing here with this young guy. And this is what we're seeing in America. These jihadists are trying to shut down people of faith. these attacks are people that are actually doing something that aligns with their faith. That says, no, this is actually the Bible that says this, and this is why we're doing it. And that's the opposition that we're facing with these jihadists. Just on this attack yesterday, that we see on a regular basis here, is these attacks are because Jews are actually coming and settling.
What's interesting, you say the word faith action, but the Hebrew word for faith is emunah. And within that word, there is another word in the same root, which is imun, which means practice. And then there's another word that's connected with the same root, which is ne'emanut, which is loyalty. So emunah together is faith in action, in practice, with loyalty.
Wow.
And when you are
That's
loyal to that faith, you are living out in action. That is what Hebrew faith is. That is biblical faith. Having a theology or a belief, that can change. That's evolving. It's like when you express it in the world with action, with works, that's when you are actually living out faith.
That's really cool.
I believe that's what these young guys are doing.
Totally.
Literally what they're doing. And that's why they're getting opposition for that.
So I think it's important, even though, we can't every week talk about every story that happens like this, even though it happens every single week, some greater proportion, some less. But I think, like you were saying, Jeremy, if you pay attention to the mainstream media, if you're looking on the UN website, you will absolutely see these guys who are out shepherding their sheep and were attacked listed as violent settlers now, or an act of settler violence. But I think it's important for people to know, to have this picture painted in your head. Imagine, like Ari was saying, young people disconnected from the secular world, disconnected from technology, who believe the words of the Bible, who are out reading the Psalms, shepherding their sheep, literally walking in the footsteps of King David. Young Judeans who are shepherding their sheep in the hills of Judea, just like their ancestors did 3,000 years ago. And then they're attacked, and they're, violently attacked, bruised, bloodied, their sheep stolen, and then they're vilified because of it. And this happens over and over and over again. You guys need to know there's this picture of these actually amazing people who are out on the hills of Israel every single day, simply living their lives, settling the land, shepherding their sheep. Maybe some of them have cows. Maybe they're building a home. Those are the real people. And 100% of the time, the world will list them as violent settlers, extremists, colonizers, the occupied territories who are trying to steal homes. And the other thing is that this land is wide open. These hills, Judea and Samaria, what the world calls the West Bank, is just wide open spaces. And when you have shepherds who are attacked like this, they're shepherding out in the wide open spaces. They're not stealing land or stealing animals for the Arabs or destroying. They're walking the hills where no one has walked for 2,000 years.
Do you know what percentage of Judea and Samaria has Jewish settlement on it?
I want to say like less than 3% or something.
1%. 3% if you include the farms. And so the farms are actually protecting and securing the settlements, the bigger settlements that still in some way, even though we're expanding out to Judea and we're returning to our indigenous homeland, it's one thing they say to take the Jew out of the ghetto. It's another thing the ghetto out of the Jew. And you see these settlements pop up and they're surrounded by barbed wire fences and security systems. And then we're building in duplexes. And then you see the way that the Arabs build, just spread out. They don't have any fences, any security systems. They sleep the sleep of the just. They're just sleeping and no fences because there's no threat to them.
Exactly.
Right. And so we're building like that. So a big part of what these young, idealistic, beautiful Jews are about is breaking through that mold and saying, we're not a ghettoized Jew anymore. We're not going to live in fear. But you don't have weapons, so we don't have weapons. So we don't have weapons. Our faith is our weapon.
And they're still out there.
And the world doesn't know what to do with it.
There's one more thing I wanted to say. And, for years, we had heard this statistic that 85% of the Bible was written or occurred in Judea and Samaria. I'm sure you guys have heard something like this too. After a while, I kind of stopped saying it to people because I didn't know the source. And some of our team was like, we need to find if that's actually true. We need to figure this out. So I haven't said it in a while, right? Although I would still say, I'll tell people the majority of your Bible took place right here. Well, last week I was with one of our groups here, and our bus driver which the bus drivers are always like the coolest people in Israel, because they're always like the locals. They have their own stories. They're like the pioneers. This guy, like every time he lets us off the bus, he's like studying Torah. He told me, he's like, there was a professor that did a study in Israel, and I still don't have the source, so I'm sorry I can't like actually quote the source for you guys, but he said this professor did an actual study and found out that 93% of the Bible was written or took place in Judea and Samaria. And so I thought it was just really interesting that randomly I heard this again, and hopefully I will find the source. But like, people need to know that when they're talking about making a Palestinian state, they're talking about giving this way land to terrorists, to Hamas, to Fatah, to Palestinian Authority, whatever. They're talking about giving away the Bible. They're talking about taking away the very places where the Bible was written, where the Bible took place, where almost every single hero and character from our scripture, our shared scriptures for the Jewish people and for Christianity, took place right here, the very heritage sites.
That's the common thread with the enemies of Israel. We're not the Jews of the Bible. This isn't the same Israel as it was in the Bible. Once they remove us from biblical Israel in the land, then it's like, all right, there's some random people that are living in Tel Aviv that has no continuity. And our deepest message to the world is that the Bible is alive today, that we are the next chapter in the book, that we are the continuation of the people of Israel, and that biblical destiny is unfolding. That's why this little sliver of land inside a sliver of land in Judea and Samaria, that's on the chopping block, because once they detach us from biblical Israel, they've detached us from the Bible.
I mean, on a higher level than that being our message today, I'm starting to realize that Israel advocacy, YouTube clips, and a lot of it is really not the ultimate answer. It's not convincing the world of anything. It's understanding the truth ourselves and living that truth.
That's right, yeah.
When we live as biblical Jews, when we live as God, one of the in last week's Torah portion, Jacob gets Esau's blessing, and the entire premise of why did he take Esau's blessing? Why did Isaac love Esau? Because he saw the potential in Esau, that he had a mastery of the material world, and Isaac believed that he could elevate it, but Rebekah knew better. And so when Jacob took the blessing, it's because he would be able to really elevate the physical material world. He wouldn't be owned by it, but he would elevate it and sanctify it. But when God is bringing the nation of Israel back to the land of Israel, he's bringing us home, and there are millions of Jews in America. Many of them are there because of their physical, material attachment to the land. And so Esau actually has a legitimate grievance against us. He has a legitimate grievance against Israel, that if we're not returning to our land and we are actually owned by our possessions, then we're not sanctifying it. When we return to the land of Israel and we sanctify the material world and we shine a light, then I believe that Esau's heart will change towards us. Ishmael's heart will change towards us. We don't need to convince them of anything. We just need to be who we're supposed to be. And that who we are will speak much louder than what we say.
Are you saying that the light and the Torah is actually supposed to go forth from Zion to the world?
That's well articulated. Yeah, you should do this.
Almost like somebody wrote that.
Well, because if not, then there's only going to be lies. When I think about like this, how many times the occupation, when you think about there's only 1% of Judea and Samaria that's settled by Jews in the world, it's like not just like a lie. It's the anti-truth. 1% of that land is settled, and they're obsessed with the Jewish occupation in the land. You can't make this up. So unless the Jews actually bring the truth, the lies will fill the vacuum.
So speaking of land in Judea and Samaria, there's another story, and it's interesting because a lot of the stories we're talking about today were mostly found in the Hebrew media, not in the English media. So you guys are getting the real like behind the scenes scoop today, and that's lots of thanks to Jeremy and Ari, because our Hebrew is not quite as good as y'all's by a long shot. But the Knesset, Israel's parliament, is actually working on a piece of legislation that would overturn a 70-year discriminatory law that keeps Jews from buying land in Judea and Samaria. For 70 plus years now, you could not purchase any house, any piece of land, any building in Judea and Samaria unless you were Jordanian, had Jordanian citizenship, or some kind of Arab citizenship. I would assume Palestinian Authority. I don't know if maybe another Arab country would also qualify. But this is just crazy. And Nate, you can chime in here because I know this is your area of expertise as well. That you could be an Israeli citizen living in the nation of Israel, and you can't buy property. But
That's right.
if you're a Jordanian who does not live in Israel, you live in Jordan, you have a Jordanian passport, you could come over here to Israel and buy a piece of property.
It is so absurd that I'm sure people are going to be like, wait, let me pause this, go back 40 seconds and re-listen to that. Wait, Jews can buy property in Ottawa, in New York, in London, in Japan, but they can't buy property in Judea? And everybody else can? It's not like it's not buyable, just not buyable by Jews.
Exactly.
Right? And why is that? It's from the Ottoman law back in 1858. Right? And so why is Israel held on to this? It's like, imagine America enforcing British colonial law from before the revolution, enforcing that now in America. Right? It's just so crazy. So go ahead, Nate. Yes.
So this is just the tip of the iceberg of the insanity of this stuff. Like, we could go for an hour podcast just talking about this issue. But simply, I think that this law actually is good, but it's also a bit insane because there's a really simple way to fix this. It's called sovereignty.
Exactly.
That actually fixes the problem because the reason why this law is still on the books is because Judea and Samaria is still occupied territories. And because it's occupied territories and not under a sovereign nation, it's not sovereign law has not been applied to Judea and Samaria, they have to recognize the previous law of the previous owners of that land to the last sovereign nation, which would be
But I think what's Ari's saying, though, is interesting is it literally goes back to, like, a lot of the laws go back to the Ottoman Turkish Empire.
The last sovereign nation to rule over the land.
Like people think, oh, it's occupied territories, and you're like, yeah, the laws they actually go back to the
So this is where it gets like absolutely insanity because we're talking about Ottoman law here that's still deciding what happens in Judea and Samaria. That's more than 500 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So you have deeds from the Ottoman Empire to Arabs here that we actually don't even know who they are. And it actually causes a big problem because it's occupied territory, so it's under military law. It's not under the sovereign nation Israeli law. It's under military law. And so that means that Muhammad owns a piece of land of the Ottoman Empire, the son of Muhammad. Well, we have no idea who that is. There's no way of knowing. Or Jihad owns the land, and he has 150 descendants now, and they're all over the world.
People are going to think you're joking when you say Jihad. Like,
no, literally, I know people
actually are named Jihad.
I met a Arab from Shem named Jihad. Like, that's literally his name.
It's a popular name.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, why not?
So I had a plumber named Mashiach. Just saying. Okay, it goes both ways.
That's right. So this whole thing is really atrocious when it comes down to it. The actual law itself, yes, it needs to happen. But another thing is it doesn't actually change anything because when it actually comes down to the ground under the Palestinian Authority, if an Arab sells land to a Jew, he gets the death penalty. Once again, this is insane. Like, we're sitting in a situation where they changed this law in Israel, but on the ground, can it actually do anything?
There are Arabs willing to sell, and there's like companies set up to funnel it through multiple
parties.
Right
now you have a company
to protect them and stuff.
The way that they do it right now is that you have a company that's set up in Israel, that's under a company that's set up in New York, that's under a company that's set up in England, that's under a company that's set up in Buenos Aires, and it's under a company, and it's like 10 different companies that's under, so nobody knows who actually is the owner.
Right.
That's literally how they buy land in Judea and Samaria right now. And then they'll have some jihadist Arab that wants to make a little money that is the cover for this whole.
But just to make it clear, that what's insane about this is not the Ottoman law.
No.
That makes perfect sense. It makes sense that the Ottomans in 1858, when the early pioneers were starting to trickle back to the land and they were seeing this happen, that they designed laws specifically to prevent Jews from returning to Judea, from reclaiming their land. That makes perfect sense.
Right.
What is insane is that the Jewish state of Israel is still using that law.
Correct. Right. Well, and I think what's the solution? What is the solution here? What's going to happen right now in Ukraine and Russia? There's about to be a border change. How does that play out in every other country in the world? Well, how did it play out in Israel in 1948? Well, this is basically the way it happens, is when you have a border change, you set up a system. The government, you have to come in and claim your land. They come in with the paperwork. They say they have a time frame, they have an office, they have a place that says, this is my land, this is the land that's deeded, and they come in and they claim the land. And then any land that's not claimed automatically becomes state land. We have a huge amount of land right now that's just, we have no idea who it is. We know it's private land. You can't do anything with it because it's private land. And so then once that happens, in Israel proper, any Jew can buy land. Israel proper.
But I think it's important to stress too
Yeah.
that like Israel's already way past that point. And like there's already a lot of land in Judea and Samaria that's designated as state land.
Correct.
And people think, oh, like, well, yeah, you're talking about Israel taking over, occupied territory. But then the question is like, from who? From the Ottoman Turks or from Jordan?
That's right.
Or
That's right.
because people think like, oh, it's the Palestinians. I'm like, no, like there's not really any Palestinian entity or government or nation that it would go back to. And even like if you were to go start knocking on doors from our Arab neighbors across the hill, be like, oh, where are you from? I'm from Egypt. Where are you from? I'm from Jordan. I'm from Syria. I'm from Lebanon. Like they're not from here. The most of the Arabs, yes, of course, there's some. Or it's just Nate's phone.
Every time.
But literally all that needs to happen is for Israel to apply sovereignty and like people think, well, isn't that like a big deal? And then Israel's taking over another country. No, like literally Israel just has to say sovereignty now, and that's it.
That's
now,
right.
obviously there's logistics on the ground that have to happen.
This law must be a step in the right direction because the Hamas came out against it.
That's true. It is.
Anything Hamas comes against is definitely a step in the right direction.
For sure. And I think getting into a bigger topic here, I think the whole sovereignty issue is there is the biggest issue that I've heard that I believe actually is a legitimate issue is that how do you deal with the crime? The jihadists are the people that commit the crime in Israel. For the most part, most of the crime is committed by the Arab population. And if you bring in another 1 to 2 million Arabs in Judea and Samaria, if you apply sovereignty, how do you deal with the crime issue?
I would look at Dubai. I think that Dubai is a marvelous example of how to deal with the jihad. There is 0% crime in Dubai. I went to Dubai as soon as they joined the Abraham Accords. I went there for Hanukkah because I had never imagined that I would be able to go in a Muslim country with my seat out and a kippah on my head.
So cool.
To me, it felt a little bit like the Messianic era. Like, wow, this is actually happening. And I remember sending my daughter Emunah, who was like, 8 years old at the time. I said, just go across the street, get some milk, we'll have some breakfast in the morning. And she's downtown Dubai.
Wow.
And she's walking across the street. My wife would walk through like, here's the African workers. She's like, oh, good evening, ma'am. Walk by Afghan workers. Good evening, ma'am. Just no crime. Because if you do commit a crime, there is an immediate and severe punishment. So what Israel would need to do is to take ownership and full responsibility. And if there is any jihad that rears its head, even with a like on Facebook, they need to be deported. They need to be dealt with. And that's how we would deal with it. We actually need to take responsibility.
There's also Guam and the Mariana Islands. There's Puerto Rico. When you become, it doesn't mean automatic citizenship. There's no country where that's a demand. There's a path to citizenship where they can prove their loyalty and their desire to live in the Jewish state of Israel, and then they would be able to be accepted. But just to automatically give them citizenship, and that's a demand of the international community, it's absurd. We don't need to take that seriously. Immediate sovereignty over Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, period.
Well, I think it would actually be a good idea if like, all right, well, if you would like to actually be a full citizen, here's the path to conversion. This is a Jewish country. Do you want to convert to Judaism? Because it's not a racist thing. It's not like if you're black or if you're white or if you're purple or polka dotted, you can always join the people of Israel. If there is one Jewish state, that's another option. If you want to be a ger toshav, you want to be a resident alien, you want to be a friend of the people of Israel, then there's another status for you. You can live here in peace. But if you raise your finger in jihad, there needs to be immediate consequences.
I guess the question that I have on that is that Israel's already having a hard time policing the Arab neighborhoods outside of Judea and Samaria, in whether that's East Jerusalem, that's Haifa areas, Tel Aviv areas, Lod, Nazareth, these kind of areas. There's a lot of crime that's happening. How do you carry this extra burden? How do you enforce that? Because the police force, like that's a huge amount.
Well, I mean, if they started out by just getting rid of all the current terrorists that could take care of like.
Right.
Well, how many? What was it? 85% said they were supported Hamas after October 7th.
That's right.
So I mean, if we got rid of 85% of them, actually saying yes, these guys are current terrorists, and just kick those out of the country, then you only have a lot less to deal with.
Send them to Syria. Like
Why not?
when you say get rid of them, like what does that mean? There's actually like a real way to do that because you know what's
Or
happening.
South Africa.
Yemen
Just
would
send
be
them
a
on a
great
plane to
place.
South Africa and let them
Yemen
figure it
would
out.
be a great
How about
place.
Yemen?
There's a lot of jihadist countries that should really be open arms, receive them with open arms, you know, but of course the whole world is against Jews returning to Judea. The light of redemption shines more brightly and illuminates the world more powerfully with the godly light. And that godly light is a threat to the Tucker Carlsons of the world, to the Vladimir Putins of the world. And on a deep subconscious level, they recognize the threat that is to their power. Just in this week's Torah portion, right after Jacob confronted Esau, what's the first thing he did? He bought a field right here in Shechem. Right? He purchased the land of Israel. And again and again, David, Abraham, they're offered to take it for free, take it for free. No. They could say, yes, I'll take it for free because God has given it to them. But like, yes, I want to acquire it on the divine spiritual realm, but also on this earthly realm. So it can never be in all of those places where we purchased the land. Those are the most contested places where they come against us with the greatest fierceness is exactly in those places where we purchased the land. And so we really need to look back at our forefathers and understand we need to go in their ways and that's what's happening. This week's Torah portion is when this law was passed.
Yeah, I think that's really
One
interesting.
other thing on the land thing is outside of Judea and Samaria, Arabs and Jews buy and purchase land all the time in Israel proper. If you go to Lod, go to Tel Aviv, go to these places where there's Arabs, Jews living together, there is no death penalty to Arabs when they sell land. There's no restriction on Israeli law that keeps Jews from buying land. It's open. You can purchase land back and forth. And so I believe sovereignty is really the answer to change the ground.
I would say not. What does sovereignty do? It really gets rid of the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinian Authority are the ones that are paying the terrorists to kill Jews.
The Palestinian dictatorship.
Right. They haven't been elected in I don't even know how long. They're paying the terrorists to kill Jews. They're killing the Arabs that are selling land to Jews. It's like, how can we be dealing with such an authority at our borders, inside our borders with us? It's not just a matter of sovereignty. It's a matter of just dismantling that terrible entity. And now what Israel's thinking about doing is actually bringing them to rule over Gaza.
Exactly.
Like,
I was about to
is
say, like literally the UN Security Council was voting last week for a Palestinian state under the auspices of the Palestinian Authority, provided that they go through this reform process.
Is there any other country in the world, though, United Nations are voting about how that country should deal with its internal issues? Only Israel.
Insane.
Well, and just the idea that the Palestinian Authority would reform or that Hamas would reform, because all of this hinges on like reform, right? And we're like, how many decades of intifadas and violence and attacks and evidence do we need? I mean, like we've been in the Arab villages to see the mayors and the maps of Israel on the wall and the propaganda and the curriculum and the just the brainwashing, and they go to summer camp every year to learn how to kill Jews. It's like, and you were saying hundreds of millions of dollars that they give to terrorists. Like how much more evidence do we need? Like this is not going to work. But if we got rid of Hamas and we got rid of Fatah, which is the Palestinian Authority, and the PLO, it's all the same thing. We could actually get something done, and there could be sovereignty and there could be peace.
Which I think even the Palestinian Authority, I think the whole misconception there is that they're actually a reigning governing body.
Oh, no. Mahmoud Abbas is 90 years old, and he's 15 plus years over his term limit.
Well, I think even more than that, Mahmoud Abbas abolished the legislative branch of the Palestinian Authority. There's no legislative branch anymore. The Oslo Accords that set up the Palestinian Authority as the government was entirely based on a really American-style government where you have a legislative branch, a judicial branch, and the executor of that of the Palestinian Authority. That's how it was set up. Today, the Mahmoud Abbas abolished the legislative branch. He coerced the judicial branch to pass a law or to actually decide that he could do that. Like, so it's really become a dictatorship.
Well, the
He's
Oslo
passing
Accords
laws without anybody else. He's the only one doing it.
Palestinian Authority was started as an interim government.
Correct.
When the Oslo Accords called for a full government to be set up, and like that never happened.
That was only supposed to last for 5 years.
Right. Never happened. Like it just didn't. Like there's nothing to show for it. It's
really
at all, so.
Completely. The only thing that's still existent from the Oslo Accords is the A, B, and C on the ground on the Arab side. That's really the only
which
thing
the
left.
Arabs have built 100 and I saw this morning 103,000 illegal structures inside Area C.
Yeah,
without
you know,
permission.
I remember when I was on the Louis Theroux documentary, The Settlers, which my face was the thumbnail of, and he only had 2 commercials for the entire, you know, the whole thing. And one of them was a little brief conversation with me. Now, why did he use that clip? I actually really liked that clip. Why did he use that clip? Because to him, he's trying to show the world that these crazy settlers don't care about the rule of law. But I like that clip because I was saying that certain things transcend this man-made, hypocritical, international law that applies very selectively to some and not others. And I say this transcends that. There's the law of man and the law of God. And when they conflict, there's no question in my mind who to go with. And that's what the state of Israel will soon be projecting that light to the world. Again, we are on the seam between the leadership of Saul into the leadership of David. I feel it. Everybody feels it. We're on the cusp of a great light of redemption shining. May it be soon.
And this law in the Knesset is just another historic shift towards that process. I think if the Knesset actually passes a law, there's a rumor that maybe the defense ministry just has to annul the ban on the law even before the Knesset passes legislation, right? And that means any Israeli, any Jew could then purchase land inside Judea and Samaria. It could be revolutionary. So I think that's just amazing things happening. Jeremy, you usually have some Torah portion nuggets for us. Ari kind of already referenced this week's Torah portion. Before we wrap up today, you have anything to add from the Torah this week?
Yeah, I feel like it's important that we feel the winds of change. The winds of change are blowing around the world right now. And America was the shining light. I felt like Israel could always rely on the United States. And I feel like we're coming to a time where Israel will only be able to rely on God. And in Genesis chapter 31, at the very end of the story, right before Jacob leaves, it says that Jacob wakes up, he looks at Laban's face, and Laban's face is not the same as it was the day before. And then God comes to him and says, get up and go back to the land of Israel. And so I feel like the people that are inside America, the Jews that are inside America, they need to look up and say, like, is the face of Laban the same as it was the other day? Or is there like a rise in Jew hatred in America? And the people inside Israel need to look at America and say, like, is the face the same or is it different? And I feel like if we really feel the winds of change, that is the call to return to the land of Israel. And the fact that this law is being passed, that we can now buy land in Judea and Samaria, all of this is pointing us to one direction. It's all pointing us back to the land of Israel. And you think about it, I mean, the laws are against us, the numbers are against us, the international communities are against us, and it's all about the Jewish people settling the land of Israel. And right now we need to realize that we need to settle it one way or the other, not with America's help and not with anyone's help. Just we need sovereignty and we need to settle the land.
That's right.
I was just thinking on that. Is this a time when, I'm thinking about Laban coming after Jacob, he leaves here and they set up this altar and kind of say, all right, here's a boundary. You don't cross this point. I don't cross that point. Is that kind of where Israel needs to be right now?
Exactly.
It's kind of like saying, all right, America, like, yeah, we've gotten a lot from you, all these children, all this, whatever, but here's the boundary. You can come to here and we're going to come to here, but we're not crossing this line.
Interesting.
So just thought about that as you were saying it.
It's an interesting thought. Guys, keep your eyes on the land of Israel. It's where it's where prophecy and world-changing, shaking events are happening every single day. And what's happening in America is ultimately tied to what's happening in Israel. There's trouble in Washington D.C. There's the same type of jihad happening right in the hills of Judea. And you got to keep our eyes fixed on what's important. And ultimately, that's God's plan for redemption coming out of Jerusalem. So, as always, guys, great to have you with us. Let us know what you think about today's podcast in the comments below. Make sure you're subscribed as we're nearing the end of the year. We're excited about another year. Jeremy and Ari are still excited about 2026. We're going to keep bringing you as much content as we possibly can, always shining that light forth from Zion, from Jerusalem, from the land of Israel. As always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what's happening in Israel. We'll be back very soon here at the Israel Guys.